everybody? I'm your host, the notorious. Damn, I'm already getting ickies in my throat. But I'm the notorious HFL, your host on this podcast. Huge fat loser on all social media platforms, and Aaron Lohman in real life. First, I want to thank my sponsor for this episode, Reps for Responders. You can find them out at reps4responders.org or reps_for_responders on social media. They're a 501c3 for first responders. They provide resources and outlets for them, mostly physical fitness related, jiu-jitsu scholarships, gym scholarships, etc. They just want to help cops get healthy. Their two events that are coming up are their Reps for Responders beefsteak event, which is in New Jersey. It's a big Jersey thing where it's an all-you-can-eat steak dinner, but they don't serve like a traditional steak like to your face. They serve little pieces of different types of steak on crackers or pieces of bread, and it's a good chance to get together. So make sure you check that out. And also, the other event is the Echelon Front Reps for Responders roll call event, which will be taking place also in New Jersey, hosted by Echelon Front, Jocko Willing's company. It's a good way to check in and make sure that you guys are all looking at leadership in the same way and trying to help your people. So make sure you check that out for dates and times, etc. Please check out reps4responders.org or reps_for_responders. Guys, what I want to talk to you about today, this is mostly going to be centered around law enforcement, and it's because of the things that I deal with and I talk about. I actually did a Q&A on this very topic throughout the week, and it's about the reality of whose responsibility it is to take care of you. It's yours. And, for some reason, as first responders, we like to think, or we have this fantasy that our organization or our job is going to take care of us. And I see people in the private sector, deal with this too sometimes, that, oh my God, I can't believe my employer doesn't care about me. Listen, there are going to be individuals at your job that care about you to a certain extent, but in the reality of it, it's not, nor has it ever been, your employer's responsibility to make sure that you take care of yourself. Now, I know that it's nice to think that way, that we should like, oh my God, I can't believe it's never really been that way. I know nostalgically, and especially in law enforcement, we like to think that the job was a certain way back in the day because of the way people talk about it nostalgically. But in reality, it was even worse. And people think that it was in a way where they would take care of you, and it wasn't. They would not take care of you. They still don't. They do it to a certain extent, right? But it's really not their responsibility. And like what I always usually say when I present is that no Fortune 500 company is going to follow you around and smack a cheeseburger out of your hand. And they're not going to hold you by your hand and make you seek mental health treatment. But there's always this pushback that the job should provide this, the job should do this, the job should do that, but they're fucking not doing it, dude. So like, it comes a point where like, it would be nice to have all those things. It would be great. It would be great if, my employer provided me all those things. But at the end of the day, they don't fucking have to. They never should have had to, right? And if they do, that's great. But right now, they're not. So you can't keep sitting around waiting and acting like you know what, I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to take care of myself and my own personal responsibilities when my employer provides that for me. That's stupid, because it probably, and it may, it probably will never happen. So you're going to be waiting forever, blaming your employer for the reason that you don't take care of yourself. But meanwhile, it should be you that's been taking care of yourself the whole entire time. And there's multi levels of the reasons why they shouldn't take care of you. It really is your responsibility. I mean, at the end of the day, they can provide you with any amount of resources available, but unless they're physically dragging you to take care of yourself, what else do you want? I don't understand. And when I put forth this Q&A, some of the responses that I got were absolutely like pretty insane. People want to be able to work out on department time. And listen, don't get me wrong, there's people who have the ability to do that, but most of the department doesn't have the ability to do that. And yeah, I mean, it would be great. It would be great if that was provided, if that was written, but you have to understand that um, things can't just happen in a public sector job. You think that all of a sudden a public sector job can just turn around and be like, guys, listen, everybody in our agency is going to be entitled to this privilege? No way. It doesn't work that way, because then another union will turn around and be like, wait a second, the police department is getting paid to exercise on department time, on city time, really, not just department time, city time. We want that same benefit. And technically, they're right. They would be entitled to the same benefit because they're city employees. Now, obviously, our jobs are much different and have a much different level of what is required physically or not. But who gives a shit? It doesn't matter. You may think that, oh, I'm more important because I'm a police officer, and you may be right. You may be right in thinking that. But on an overall employment scale and how employment works and what employment looks like on an actual contractual level, nobody gives a shit. We're all the same city employees. We all get paid money by the city. It's all taxpayer money, right? So the taxpayers don't want to be put on, like, left on the hook paying for us to work out on overtime, to work out on department time, when we could be using that time to actually protect them, right? And the way they look at it is they know that it's a physically demanding job, and I know that they should want police officers to be in maintaining their physical shape, but according to them, right, according to the taxpayer, that is like literally what we get paid for. I always laughed about this. During COVID, police officers wanted to get paid quote unquote hazard pay. Yeah, we do get paid hazard pay. It's called pay. That's why they pay us what they pay us. They don't pay us because we're going to go out there giving hugs, right? They pay us what they pay us because of what we do for a living. And if it wasn't dangerous, they wouldn't pay us what they pay us, right? They would pay us like a security guard salary, $10, $15 an hour, or whatever minimum wage is. That's what they would pay us if it wasn't dangerous, and that's why we get paid what we get paid. And nobody is going to follow us around and make sure that we take care of ourselves. Even I don't understand why it is that as first responders, we think or we demand from our employer that we get all these benefits that we essentially don't even fucking use. There's a statistic out there that says only 30%, around 30% of people employed by the police department have a yearly physical that insurance covers. Only 30%. So if insurance is covering that and only 30% of cops are doing it, why the fuck? Who's to blame for that? Oh, well, I didn't have time. I'm so busy. Blah, blah. No, listen, you're not making your own life a priority, and that's nobody's responsibility but your own. Even in people I know who do 50, 60, 70 hours a month, sometimes in involuntary overtime, they still have the ability, and they still somehow find the ability to exercise, eat right, do all these things, spend time with their family, because they sacrifice on other things. They sacrifice on sleep and they sacrifice on the bullshit. Let's be real here, okay? You go home, how much time are you spending scrolling through the fucking internet when you get home, or watching that TV show that you want to watch, as opposed to going to bed? A lot. I know, because I fucking did it. Okay. And I'd be like, I'm so tired, I have no time. Well, guess what? If I came home, I washed my face, I brushed my fucking teeth, and I went to bed, instead of watching that Netflix show that I wanted to watch, I would have actually gotten the appropriate amount of sleep, or at least a better amount of sleep than I did if I stayed up watching that show, or scrolled through the fucking internet, watching body camera footage from Nebraska or Missouri that has nothing to do with my agency, just to get more pissed off and not sleep the way I should be sleeping, and then I turn around and blame the job. No, that's my own choice. That's my own decision. I am making those decisions to not give a shit about my health and not prioritize my health. That has nothing to do with the police department. The police department will provide us enough bullshit to allow us to destroy ourselves, 100%. But it's up to us as individuals to look at the circumstances that we have and manage them the best way that we possibly can. The unfortunate part about it is that instead of doing that, instead of finding positive outlets, we look for the path of least resistance. We look for the bullshit. We look for the person who's slacking off, who's making excuses, who's drinking too much, who's giving into negative coping mechanisms, and then we decide, hey, you know what? That's a lot easier than doing the hard shit and working on myself and sacrificing. So we take that path of least resistance and join the group who's doing that. That's what we do. We see the people who don't give a fuck about themselves and living that easy lifestyle of working the 4 to 4, right? Going out after work, after the 4 to 12, and drinking for 4 hours, then coming home and doing the same thing again. We look for that path of least resistance because that's the popular group. That's the easy way out, is to live a shitty lifestyle and develop those negative coping mechanisms. And I have no tolerance for that because I lived that lifestyle. I lived the easy coping mechanism lifestyle. And I can tell you this right now, it was 100% a personal choice. But that personal choice to do the opposite, to live a healthy lifestyle because it is not ingrained in the culture of first responders, is way much more difficult than giving in to the shitty negative coping mechanisms that we do develop. And somebody responded in the comments when I talked about how we drink all the time, how we cheat on each other, cheat on our spouses, how we, do too much tobacco, how we drink too much caffeine, how we have a negative attitude. They said, well, these are just coping mechanism responses. Yes, they are coping mechanism responses. They're shitty ones. That's the problem, is that we look at shitty coping mechanism responses as being okay in our culture. They're not. They're not okay. And for anybody out there, and I love this response too, well, everybody does it. No, the fuck they don't. They don't do it. I'm telling you right now, that is something that we say as first responders to justify our shitty behavior. But the truth of the matter is, not everybody's like that. Not every job is like that. Not every employer is like that. No, it is much, much higher in first responder and law enforcement culture, is because we are a fucking negative victim mindset, blaming, crybaby culture. We are. And I don't give a fuck who's listening right now. I don't care. I don't care if this hurts your feelings. You fucking know deep down this is the truth. We pretend to be victims of everything. Everybody hates us. Nobody likes us. The job sucks. This isn't my fault. I can't control myself. That's what we sound like out there. That's what we sound like. We sound like we're a victim. We're the victims constantly. And then because nobody wants to be alone and nobody wants to feel like a victim, we all enable the shit out of each other to act the way that we do. It's okay that you act so shitty. You have a hard job. It's okay that you go out and drink every day. I understand. I understand where you're coming from. And then we turn around and what we do is we blame traumatic events, right? This is what I love. Yes, traumatic events are fucking difficult for sure. The average person, the average city police officer sees around 200 or so, depending on where you work or what you do for a living. Obviously, you could work in a busy command and do absolutely fucking nothing with your life and never see shit, right? But the average of working in like a busy sector is 200 a year, 200 traumatic incidents a year, where the regular person sees about 20 in their lifetime. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Traumatic event incidents suck. They can be a catalyst for negative coping mechanisms and bad behavior. But let's be fucking real here. Okay. I work this job. So do a lot of people. And we know the fucking truth. We know that it has a lot less to do with the traumatic incidents that we see. We use those traumatic incidents as a scapegoat for our shitty behavior when it has nothing to do with it. There are so many people out there that I know who develop alcohol problems or substance abuse problems or shitty coping mechanisms who don't even think about the traumatic events at all. But then what happens is they get caught up and then they turn around and flip it and be like, you know what? This is because of my trauma and all this shit that happened on the job. Meanwhile, they never even talked about it or thought about it before then. Okay. And they're using that trauma and all this other stuff as a reason for why they're behaving the way they're behaving, which is fine. If they want to do that, that's great. Okay. But then it comes to a point where if that trauma is what has caused you, if that trauma is what's caused you to develop a drinking problem or to do these things, and you recognize that, but then at the same time, you're not making decisions to get better and fix that thing, that is 100% on you. That's a choice that you're making every single fucking day. And this is the argument that I get in when people say, it's okay to not be okay. I agree with that. It is okay to not be okay in the moment. But the second moment should be talking about fucking solutions. We should be talking about, okay, you're not okay now. What are we going to do tomorrow to get you better so that tomorrow you are okay? The next day you are better than okay. And we get on the process to progression, to getting better. But the problem is we don't fucking talk about that in our culture because all we do is go, it's okay to not be okay. I'll see you tomorrow. And then tomorrow we go, it's okay to not be okay. I'll see you tomorrow. It's okay. Then we continue this cycle of enabling and coddling the shit out of each other because we quote unquote have a hard job, have a difficult job, and see a lot of stress. Bullshit. Absolute fucking bullshit. We fucking enable the shit out of each other so much with our victim mindset and that nobody understands us and nobody could possibly understand us. It's insane. This is the whole thing. Like, cops don't want to talk to somebody who doesn't understand the police culture. I get that 100%. They should be familiar with the police culture. However, you might want to talk to somebody who doesn't understand what the police culture is sometimes, because they can give you a more realistic perspective of how much of a fucking piece of shit that you're being, okay, to an outside person. Because what I love to see sometimes is, and when I say love, I mean it's hilarious to me. I see cops who retire or police spouses who take on the journey of becoming a mental health counselor or a therapist or a psychologist with the specific intention of just coddling cops. That's what they do. Like, okay, nobody's going to understand them, but since I'm a police spouse or I'm a former police officer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take on this path of becoming a psychologist or a counselor or whatever it is, so I can have a better understanding. No, what they mean by that is they want to take on this path so they can coddle the shit out of fucking cops and first responders. That's what they mean. Because when I've seen it happen a million times. They will take on this path, and then they will be the person who enables law enforcement people. Sometimes, I'm sorry, we need to hear it from regular outside people about how fucked up we are. But the problem is, we don't want to hear it. Okay. And when we say that we want to hear it from somebody who worked our profession or who was a cop or who is familiar, we're full of shit. Because the second some cop who retires and becomes a mental health counselor calls us out on our bullshit, we say, well, they didn't work on my job. They didn't work on my job. They don't understand what it's like to be a cop on my job. Then we specify it so severely that we pinhole it. We'll be like, well, they didn't work on my job. They didn't work my precinct. They didn't work my sector. They didn't work my sector in my tour with my partner during the time that listen, we'll find every fucking excuse so that the person who is telling us the truth is bullshit, just to confirm our own confirmation bias that it's okay that we're fucked up and being a piece of shit. That's what we do. And then we'll find somebody who feels the same way, and then we'll all have a pity party together and say, nobody understands what it's like to work in my precinct, in my sector, at my time, with my boss, with my partner, and specify it so fucking much that nobody else could possibly understand what they're going through. But the truth of the matter is, the regular people in the public understand what it's like to be a human being, and a lot of times we don't act like fucking human beings. We don't. All right. We have problems that we refuse to address because it's hard, and we would have to admit that we were the problem, not our employer. But I got to tell you, so before I got to where I work now in the health and wellness section, I was always one of those people who worked on the outside, who looked at the job, whatever it is, the unions, the job, and the brass, all this stuff, as being the main driver of the problem, right? Until I decided, obviously, to change my own life and realized what was really going on, and that it was all my fault. Most of it was my fault of what I could do. My dog just stepped in. What's up, Hollis? Hollis is in the building. Hollis, Queens, Walgreens. For those of you who don't know, that's where I rescued him from a couple years ago. Now he's chilling in the studio. So I forgot where I was going with that. But, oh yeah, so before I got into the health and wellness section, I had this feeling where even after I went through my transformation and all this stuff, I thought that the career was a main driving force for people's problems and, all these things. Now that I've been doing what I've been doing for a couple of years and dealing with these scenarios and talking to police officers and having all these things go on, I've realized slowly but surely that the job is really not the driving force behind most of these issues at all. In fact, we are, right? A lot of times when I hear stories, or like when I talk to police officers or family members of police officers who are dealing with issues, or they'll be like, it came out of nowhere. That's the first thing that they'll say is like, oh my God, it came out of nowhere. It was so unexpected. But then when you look back and you like dissect what was going on in their life, they were fucking getting drunk every day. They were intoxicated on duty. They were fighting with their spouses continuously. Maybe they were even an abusive spouse. Nobody called the police. So did it really come out of nowhere? I don't think that it did as much. Listen, are there rare circumstances where it does? Sure, of course. Or how about this? So-and-so wanted help, but somebody else in their family warned them against going to get help because of what might happen. So then whose problem is that? That's the person who fucking warned them about something that might never exist. Now somebody died because of a decision that they made based on the opinion of somebody else, because they might, quote unquote, lose their job or lose their gun and shield. What the fuck is worse? Losing your job or losing your gun and shield? And if you say losing your gun and shield is worse than losing your life, you're fucking hypnotized. You are hypnotized, okay? It is way better to lose your gun and shield than it is to lose your life. And this was my problem when I was going through what I went through, is that I could not imagine what it would be like to not be a cop. Now, I have being a police officer is not my identity, nor should it be anybody's identity, okay? The problem is that we're so entrenched in this identity that we can't imagine what it's like to be not be a cop anymore or lose our gun and shield temporarily, that it's almost like our whole entire world is collapsing because, once again, because our shitty enabling culture, what our shitty enabling culture does to us is it coaches us into, this is your fucking life now. This is all that you're going to live. This is all that you're going to do. You're going to, quote unquote, bleed blue, be a member of the thin blue line. These are your brothers and sisters. Meanwhile, it's all fucking bullshit, dude. You got to take care of yourself first. If you're not taking care of yourself first, nobody's going to give a fuck, okay? And the second you start actually prioritizing yourself and taking care of yourself and putting yourself first and making sure yourself comes first, a lot of this, quote unquote, brotherhood, sisterhood, thin blue line bullshit starts to slowly fade away, and you start to see what it is. And don't get me wrong, being a first responder, we are a little bit tighter because of the shit that we go through, but we're some of the biggest fucking pussy drama queens that ever existed, okay? We are the first people to call internal affairs on each other for getting a better tour than us because somebody else had a hook that we didn't get, and be jealous of each other and try to ruin each other's lives, all right? But then, quote unquote, try to, put that thin blue line Punisher skull on the back of the truck and be like, we're brothers. We're part of the same brotherhood. Dude, no, we're not. All right. It's all pretend. It's all fake. Stop it. I genuinely, it's gross. I'll give you another example. You go on any social media page from whatever agency that you work for, me being the NYPD. You go on the official NYPD page, the official NYPD police commissioner page, the official whatever page, okay? Look at the comments by people who work with us about the people who were in those photos. Look what they say about you behind your fucking back. Those are the same people who are going to tell you, yeah, that's my brother. No, the fuck you're not. Obviously, if you're talking shit about me like that, I'm not your brother, right? It's all a goddamn illusion. And then we turn around and we pretend like, I care about police mental health. No, the fuck you don't, because you are one of the biggest contributing factors to why police mental health is so shitty. People always leave out the fact that we completely bully the shit out of each other and treat each other like dog shit on a continuous basis. And they're like, oh, the sergeants treat me like shit. The lieutenants treat me like shit. The captains treat me like shit. All the way up the ladder, but we all treat each other like shit at every single level. It doesn't matter what rank you are, from civilian on down to commissioner or mayor, whatever the fuck rank level you want to go up to. We all treat each other like dog shit. We do not care about each other. We talk shit about each other on a continuous basis, and we only play the thin blue line, blue brotherhood shit when it benefits us. When it benefits somebody else, and we might have to sacrifice a minute of our time, or we might have to sacrifice something in our own life to help somebody out, that blue brotherhood shit goes right out the fucking window, and we're ready to stab somebody in the back just because it's more convenient for us. That's the truth. That's the truth of what our employment is. Like, you stop being hypnotized about this thing where you want to be a quote unquote real cop, which is another bullshit line that I hate, and that this is your identity. I'll tell you right now, it is not your identity. This is not your life. This is not something that you should do all the fuck. Like, you should not live for this. You should be living for what goes on outside of here. And I'm going to tell you right now, another thing that I say that people get pissed off about is when I say that this is just a job. Yo, dude, this is just a job. It is just a job. That's it. It's a place where you work that can end tomorrow. It could be over. And the second you start looking at it like that, now, I'm not telling you that you shouldn't do your job to the best of your ability or even enjoy it for that matter. Enjoying your job is great. But what I'm telling you is that this is just a job. It's just a job that could end tomorrow. And tomorrow you can decide that you're going to be something else. This is not an identity. This is not bigger than anything else. This is not more important than anything else. Most of us passed a civil service exam with the minimum amount of college credits and got onto this place of employment. That's what we did. We got onto this place of employment, and we could enjoy it. We could not. But at the end of the day, it is just a job. And you have to start looking at it like it is just a job. This is the thing that you do every day. You try to do it to the best of your ability. Maybe you enjoy it. Maybe you don't. whatever your intentions are while you're employed here, you have to remember that this is just a job. The second you start thinking that it's way, way more than that is the second you are setting yourself up for A, making this your identity, which will tear you down, and B, setting yourself up for the fact that if something does happen, if this is taken away from you, it will shatter your whole entire universe when it doesn't have to. Okay. This is part of what building up resilience and doing all these things and creating positive mental health outlets and all that stuff is so important. Because if you're not having a reality check, this is part of the resilience. Pillar number one is self-awareness. Be realistic in where you are in your current situation. Be realistic in what it is that you work for, where you work. And one of the things I always talk about, especially when it comes to self-awareness, we love to pretend that the job is one way when it's really another way. The example is this. We all think that we are going to get this discretionary promotion to detective or grade or sergeant special, whatever it is. This special, if we work our asses off, if we're going to be the one who works our asses off, and we're going to be the one who gets that specialized promotion. The truth of the matter is that's not how it works. We all know that's not how it works. But then why the fuck do we think and we put every stitch of effort into doing that when we know that it doesn't work? When we know it works, the system is go out, meet people, join a fraternal organization, kiss some ass, right? That's what works. Get your name out there. That's what works. But we think that we are going to be the one who gets promoted by doing it the way, because we don't want to give up what we think gets promoted, being a real cop, doing the hard work, listen, all right? If you're doing that instead of doing what works, it's your fault. You're the one who's putting yourself in that situation. You're the one who's burning yourself out, putting in that effort, because you are living a job that only exists in your own fucking mind. That's it. You think that it should be that way. You think that the job should do this. You think that the job should take care of you. This is back to the mental health piece too. The job should take care of your mental health. The job should do this. Yeah, but they don't. And if you're operating on that plane on the way you think that it should, you are just being 100% self-aware and unrealistic about what the job really is. And that's your fault. That's 100% your fault. You are working in a place of employment that only exists in your own brain, and you're burning yourself out based on that. That's 100% your fault. That is your decision. You're making that decision. You have to think about why you're making different long-term decisions. Why am I applying to be in the detective squad? Do I want to be a detective? Do I want to do investigations? Is this something that I'm generally interested in? Or do I quote unquote, just want my shield? If you just want your shield as a temporary reward and you're applying to some place that you're probably going to be stuck in for the next 6 to 8 fucking years doing that type of police work just to get your shield, dude, you're setting yourself up for fucking failure right now. I'm telling you right now, there is no shame on staying on patrol or doing whatever it is that you enjoy doing if you don't get your shield. Who gives a shit about a shield if you fucking absolutely hate what you're doing every day and it's making you miserable to the point where, once again, you're stabbing other coworkers in the back because they got promoted or they got grade or they got all these extra things that you didn't get? Because the truth is, nepotism exists everywhere, even in the private sector, more so probably in the private sector. And people love to think nostalgically about what the NYPD was or what their law enforcement organization was back in the day, like it was any more fair. No, they didn't even have civil service promotion exams back in the day. Pretty much you got promoted to being a sergeant by bringing the lieutenant a fucking six-pack and like helping him bury his wife in his backyard after he ran her over drunk. That's how you got promoted to another civil service rank back in the day, all right? That's the reality of it. And it was way more corrupt back in the day on who got promoted. It's actually probably more fair now. Listen, but like I already said, that most discretionary promotions are unfair, and it's not realistic, and it's not great, right? But that's the system. That's the reality of the system. And let's say it should be better, but it's not. And you can't keep living continuously in where it doesn't exist. Once again, self-awareness is like, analyze where you really work, who your coworkers really are, what the reality of your environment is, what the reality of the factors are that cause people to be anxious or be depressed or have these issues. And the reality is, most of the time, it's us. It's us, 100%. We treat each other like shit. We treat ourselves like shit. We drink too much. We eat too much. We don't take care of ourselves. We don't prioritize our physical and mental health. Then another one is we move 3 hours away from our job and then complain that our job is so far. No, dude, you moved out there. You moved out there. That is a decision that you made to make your life infinitely more difficult, unfortunately. Financial problems. We overspend. We count on overtime salary. And then what happens is our overtime gets cut, or maybe we get promoted, or making a little bit less money. But we counted on our overtime salary as our salary, but it's not. It's not our salary. It can be taken away at any minute. Your commute could be changed any minute. All these things are things that need to be considered when you make a decision. When you make a decision to buy a house, on where you're going to live, on all these things. These things need to be taken into account, and unfortunately, they're not. We take so much shit for granted and then play the victim card like something was done to us. No, we made a lot of the decisions, most of the decisions that wind up ruining our mental health. But we only care about mental health when it's something that somebody can do for us, right? The second it's something that somebody could do for somebody else, we no longer care. We no longer care about the mental health. And to continue on the mental health conversation, right? One of these things, or physical health, even conversation, I'll go both ways. Is whenever the question is posed, and I see this on a lot of these quote unquote, I love to call them mental police first responder support pages, right? And if you're listening to this on audio and not video, I have quotes going in the air with my fingers. And the reason I say police support, because a lot of them do a lot more damage than good. All right. They contribute to that enabling, coddling, shitty behavior. Because now it's an outside person who probably isn't involved in law enforcement, who now we're like, oh, see, this person understands me. Like, dude, no, they don't. They're enabling the fucking shit out of you. They have no clue what you're going through. They just, or what your shitty, coping mechanisms and what you're doing to yourself or the people around you. They are just buying into that narrative that we are victims because they may know a cop or they know cops who have played it out to be like they're victims, right? And I see a lot of people in our profession, they claim to be victims, or like, I went to so-and-so for help. I tried to get resources and they fucked me over. I hear this on a continuous basis. I also hear a lot of success stories that obviously we can't talk about because of anonymity. And, like we're not allowed to talk about these positive stories because we can't, right? Because I can't give somebody's name just because they came to us and we helped them out. And, or I helped them out or somebody else helped them out. And I can't be like, hey, guess what? P.O. so-and-so, this is his story. He came to us. No, because we're not allowed to talk about it, right? But what I do see is people who claim to have gone through one of the resources in the department or outside the department, mostly inside the department, right? Because what I'm about to talk about, and they'll be like, I came to the department for help and they screwed me over. They fired me. They suspended me. They did all this stuff. Meanwhile, the truth of the matter was they didn't volunteer to come to the department for help. They got a fucking DWI. They smashed into a telephone pole. They ruined their car. They got arrested. Now that NYPD, in order for them to keep their job, is forcing them to go to alcohol counseling, right? And do the program, but they didn't want to do the program. They couldn't do the program. They refused to do the program and do the work to save their job, save their career, and eventually do that. So they wind up suspended and fired because they refused to take the steps because they were mandatorily forced to take. If you're refusing to take the steps that are being set forth in order for you to keep your job and preserve your lifestyle, that's on you. That is 100% on you. Okay? Nobody fucked you over. You made those decisions. Same thing when it comes to a domestic violence incident. Oh, so-and-so, I went to the job for help. No, dude, you didn't go to the job for help. You got arrested for putting your wife's face through a fucking wall and leaving her with 2 black eyes and a broken nose. Okay? Now, the job, even it's doing the quote-unquote right thing for you, which it's really not doing the right thing for you because you should be fucking fired. You should be fired. You should be fired for hitting your wife, okay? You should be fired. I don't give a shit. You should be fired for hitting your wife. I'm saying it right now. But the job is still trying to help you out. Still trying to help you out. I don't know why they are, but they're still trying to help you out. So they tell you that you got to do this program. You got to do all these things. And then you refuse to do those things in the program, and then the job turns around and they're going to take disciplinary action against you for not doing those things. Okay? That's nobody else's fault. Those 2 situations, and this is most of the situations where people do not get their gun and shield back, when people wind up fired from the job or they wind up getting suspended when they quote unquote came for help. That's what most of those scenarios are. Okay, that's the reality. But cops are full of shit. We believe each other. The same thing I talked about a couple of weeks ago when it comes to supplements and cops testing positive and claiming, "Oh, supplements made me fail." No, they didn't, dude. You were on drugs. You're on drugs. You fucking lied. You're lying to all of us. Shut the fuck up. Okay, this is why you can't believe people. Okay, even if they wear a uniform, the same uniform as you. This is why this is not an identity. This is not a quote unquote brotherhood. Okay, it's not. A lot of us will lie to each other and just like make shit up. All right. And a lot of us who say, "Oh, this didn't work. The job screwed me over," all this stuff. Does it happen a small bit? Yeah. Also, side note, there's some people out there, and as hard as it is to believe this, guys, that should not be members of any police department. They should not be carrying a gun. They shouldn't. Sometimes people have schizophrenic breaks, right? And that happens in your 20s and in your 30s. People develop schizophrenia, and they shouldn't be carrying a gun. They have to go to mental health services, and eventually they get psyched off the job. Is that bad? No, they shouldn't be carrying a gun. They're a danger to themselves and other people, right? It's nothing against them. It's not saying that they're a bad person because they had schizophrenia or they had a psychotic break or something happened to them. That doesn't make them a bad person. That just makes them unfit to be able to carry a gun every day. Okay, and you, as a function of being a police officer, you have to carry a gun every day. You have to. Okay, that's just the facts of the matter. But unfortunately, we look at these things as the job screwing everybody over, as opposed to, once again, the reality of what is actually occurring. Because it's so much easier for us to look at something, the bigger overhead picture of it being the job, et cetera, is screwing people over, as opposed to the decisions that we make, the reality of the things that people do to each other, and the reality that some people are not fit to be part of the police department. It's just simply what it is. And like I said, before I worked here, where I work now, I was more on the side of like, man, I can't believe the department's not doing anything to help these people. But now that I work here, I see that, honestly, I think they do too much sometimes. I genuinely think that they do too much to help people sometimes. Like I said, especially when it comes down to like DWI or domestic violence or any of these things, like I think they do too much. Okay, because there's some situations that happen where it's like, oh, I put my wife's face through a brick wall, and now I still have my job. I'm still employed. Oh, because shit happens, and people, domestic partners just get into fights and they beat the shit out of each other. No, that's not normal. That's not what should happen. Okay, domestic violence is a fucking crime. It's a crime. Okay, and for some reason we look at it like, oh yeah, whatever, it just happened. Or even worse, like we'll be like, yeah, you know how these fucking police wives are? They're just so full of shit. They just make things up at any point, right? Yeah, I've heard that a million fucking times. Well, did they? Did they make it up? Okay, sure, maybe it happens, but every time it's just some made up shit. Or maybe a lot of us, right, we're so used to being enabled and coddled that we develop psychologically a problem where we think that we can do whatever the fuck we want, including abusing our spouses and our children, right? And it becomes part of that picture, but that's uncomfortable to talk about for us, because that would take the responsibility on us and our behaviors, on our actions, as opposed to blaming the outside agency or blaming the outside world. Everything is somebody else's fault, right? This mental health discussion just always fucking pisses me off. Gets me, not pisses me off, but gets me going. And this is the reason why I got into this, and this is the reason I do what I do. For obviously outside, when I talk about resilience and I talk about coping mechanisms, because a lot of people are under the impression, because part of what I do is obviously physical fitness and nutrition related, and I write programs for people for the department and like all this other stuff. But majority of what I do is I present and I talk to groups of police officers, and even outside the job, whether it be companies or whoever, about creating resilience, because we get locked into blaming everything else, like we can't control ourselves, right? And the truth is, like, what, there's a situation, I forget the girl's name. Okay, she was a cop in like Maryland or something, and like 5 guys like slept with her, or she slept with 5 guys or whatever, and like they're like, oh my god, I can't believe this girl, she's such a whore, blah blah blah. Like, those guys didn't have self-control. Those guys had self-control. What, was she just so hot and such a temptress that she lured these men in and took advantage of them? No, dude. All right. It's their fault too. It's their fault. Okay. Oh, they were married. They were on duty. They made all these decisions. Like, I can't believe this girl got them fired. No, dude. They got themselves fired. Okay. They got themselves fired. by making bad decisions. Okay. She was not some temptress. Okay. That made this happen. Oh my God. She was just so goddamn irresistible. The cops couldn't resist. She took advantage of these men, these poor men who couldn't make a decision. No. They made the decision to give up their life, their career, their marriage, all these things for some girl. They made that decision. All right. But culturally, if you look at every meme that's out there, they're making fun of her, not these dudes who were just so weak that they couldn't not sleep with her on duty. That's their fault, 100%. But yet, as a culture, this is what we do. We just, single out females, and we do a lot. Okay, we always just try to single out females because feeling good as a male cop is, whatever. That's a whole issue for a whole nother podcast about how we, choose our ego based things, like what our own personality traits are, whether it be male, female, whatever our race is, whatever we do outside of work, whatever our hobby is that makes us superior to everybody else in our profession who isn't doing that or who isn't that. It's crazy. It's just crazy how we do that to each other. And that's just one of those examples about how, like, mental health and like what we care about. And, it's just unfortunate. Some of the other responses that I received were, oh, the job should provide gyms for us. Okay, maybe, but like realistically, okay, let me tell you this. All right. If there was one in your station house, let's say, right, why do you want it there? Because I'm going to tell you this right now. I spend enough time at work with people who I work with. If I work out on department time, or I get the opportunity to do that, when I'm training somebody or when I'm on a meal or whatever's going on, I will take advantage of that sometime. Very rarely, though. Okay. I will have to be at like the police academy or something because we don't have a facility where I'm at. And if I do that, right, I don't like it. I don't. I hate it. When I'm exercising, when I'm working out, and I have the time to work out, I do not want to be around other cops anymore. I don't. Like, I work enough time with the people that I work with that I want to get away and go see other people who don't work the same career that I do, who I can talk to about certain things, who aren't enabling me and aren't warping my world perspective, because we all think alike. And all this other shit. I want to talk to people who think differently than me. I like to see people. That's what I want to do. So I look forward to getting to the gym outside of work, whether it be before work or after work or whatever. I look forward to that. If you are wanting to have a facility in your command, it's because you want to take advantage of both sides of the system. You want to take advantage of the fact that you can work, make all your overtime that you work, whether it be 40, 50 hours a month of overtime, and also get paid on duty to work out. That's why you want a facility in your gym and a gym in your command. And I'm going to tell you this shit right now. You're not entitled to that. You're not entitled to either of those things. So you have to pick and choose. Do you want to work 40, 50 hours of overtime a month? Or are you willing to take 10 hours less or 20 hours, 15 hours less a month of overtime and go fucking work out at your own gym on your own goddamn time? Okay? You can't have it both ways. Some people, hey, they have it both ways. Whatever they got going on, fine, whatever. But like, if you have to make a decision, I am making the decision every single day that I'm going to work less overtime than I have to. Right now, I'm talking about voluntary overtime. Most of the people that I'm talking about who are bitching about this are people who are in like specialized units, detective squads, like all this other stuff, who are always or inside people who aren't working as much overtime as, let's say, patrol people. Because what's crazy to me is most of the people that I see who do work patrol and get slammed with mandatory overtime still find a way to get their fitness taken care of and their workouts in. It's the people who have it easily and are coddled the most who always seem to have the fucking issue finding time. It's nuts. It's absolutely bizarre. So they want to do both. They want to have their facility inside their command so that they can take advantage of both things. And I got to break the news to you. Not only are you playing with fire there, okay, you should be trying to get outside of your facility and actually, do something. Take a little bit less overtime, spend a little less time at work, and actually go take care of yourself, okay? Go take care of yourself outside of the facility. there's that. And also, they were going to build them at one time, and I actually think that they're actually working on putting new ones in to commands. But two things: cops ruin them. That's number one. They treat them. I see people all the time. People send me photos all the time, or I see them on people's Instagram stories and stuff about their command gym, and people break equipment and don't fix it, and they don't tell anybody, or they treat equipment like shit. Like they'll like tie a band to a bicycle, like snap the fucking monitor off the bicycle because they're trying to do some crazy Instagram exercise that they saw, and they won't fix it because they think that, like, this equipment just appears there. Meanwhile, people paid for it, and they take advantage, and they're like, well, fuck it, it's not my job, it's not my house, it's not my equipment. Somebody else fucking do it. I do enough here. I shouldn't have to fucking clean up after myself, right? Because that's how we treat each other. That's how we would treat the gym facility, and I see it happen all the time, right? So they're gonna fuck that up, right? And then when they put new equipment in, that they're just gonna bitch anyway and be like, well, this isn't the type of equipment that I like to use. Where's the CrossFit equipment? Why don't we have bumper plates? Why don't, dude? Like, I don't know what to tell you. Every command that I have been to in the NYPD specifically has some type of gym. They do. They have some type of gym, good, bad, indifferent. Some of them are really good. Some of them aren't great. Some of them suck. Okay, but I can tell you this shit right now. There's enough equipment in every single one of those facilities to get an amazing workout in and make amazing progress. But it's psychologically, you refuse to because you're like, the weight is dirty. It's dirty. Oh my God, the dirt. It's gonna make me dirty. Oh no. Clean your fucking hands then after you're done. All right. Wear gloves. I promise in situations like that, I won't make fun of you for wearing gloves. Okay. But that's a decision that you're making every day to not use those facilities that are there. Or, you know what you could do? You could go out, maybe spend a couple $100, buy some equipment for your command, and actually donate it because you care about other people's physical health besides your own, and you're willing to donate and help other people use it. But if you're not doing that, I know why. I don't disagree with you. It's because deep down that people treat the equipment like shit, and now you're justifying me saying why the department shouldn't pay for things because cops treat stuff like shit and they damage it, right? And we know that. We know that people who take the bite out of the fucking steering wheel and the new RMP, like for some reason, it makes no sense. Right on the ceiling of the new RMP. Say my car. Could you imagine writing on the ceiling of your own car? Can you imagine that? No, you would never do it. Same thing. The locker rooms, like these brand new locker rooms, the lockers are. Some of the lockers are like fucked up. It's nuts. It's absolutely crazy, And then people ask for personal trainer. Oh, there are personal trainers on the job. There's civilians that the department has, and then there's also dietitians. There's also me and Chris. Like, how many people do you want? I write fitness and nutrition programs for free for every single member of the department. And while I do write a significant amount, I don't think that I write nearly enough. I don't think there's nearly enough people coming around and being like, hey, you know what? I really need this. Here, let me send this in. Let me get a basic breakdown of what I should be eating and what type of activity I should be doing. There's not enough people taking advantage, and it's crazy. Same thing. They have the mobile health van, right? That goes around. They actually will take your blood. They'll do your blood work for you for zero cost, and nobody takes advantage of it. There's doctors out there, $70. You can have a cardiac screening, all this stuff, cancer screening, $70. Cops don't do it. All right. And that's us. We're just not taking responsibility for ourselves and whatever it is that we want to blame for not taking care of ourselves. But it's really just excuses. All the time it's excuses. A couple of the other responses I got, let's see, were, I don't know. So, yes. This is what people talk about, especially when it comes to, and I started talking about this and then I got sidetracked. When I talked about these police quote unquote support pages, is where they're like, they should have mandatory mental health check-ins in agencies. Sounds good, right? Sounds good. We should have that. First of all, we have ones after critical incidents, right? Which I agree with 100%. You should be checking in after critical incidents. However, right now, you bring people down for a critical incident, you bring people down for whatever it is. Do they have to say anything to you? No, they don't. And because of the stigma that surrounds law enforcement, and because we get wrapped up in, I don't want to say anything because something might happen and I might lose my my gun and my shield and my identity and all this stuff. And we get so scared and we worry about our career over our mental health and our well-being, which is insane. Okay. I'm telling you right now, that is nuts. You cannot fucking do that. Your life and your mental health is way more important than this job could ever be. They're not going to fucking fire you for having depression or anxiety or feeling or PTSD. They're not going to do that. Okay. They are going to try and get you help. And sometimes that involves taking your gun and shield for a temporary while. Good. They'll put you in a nice, cushy assignment. You won't have to do shit. You'll be hanging out while you get help, right? But that's not what you're worried about. You are worried about what we think about each other because the person next to you, the person you ride with just calls some other cop a fucking, look at this fucking EDP cop. What a fucking weirdo. Guy went to psych services. What a fucking asshole. Look at this loser, right? That's what you're scared about. That's what you're scared of. And that person who's saying that about that other cop is a piece of shit. And you probably shouldn't be working with that person. All right. But that's what you're actually worried about. You're not really worried about the change of duty status for a temporary while because I already told you the stats. 95% of people who have their guns and shields taken get them back. The other 5% are people who lie, cops who commit domestic violence or DWI and don't go through with the program and do what they have to do, and people who have a genuine schizophrenic psychotic break. That's the 5% of people who don't get their stuff back. 100%. Okay? That's 100%. And people would still rather think the opposite. So back to this. Okay, so the mandatory mental health check-ins, right? You have a mandatory mental health check-in. You don't say shit. You don't tell people what's going on because you're afraid. So what happens is they'll still never know what's going on with you. Okay. So that mandatory mental health check-in just went out the window. Then the second part is, let's say you have mandatory mental health check-ins, let's say once a quarter. Every 3 months, every cop gets checked. First of all, the manpower that would require would be insane depending on the size of your agency. But let's say it's possible. Let's say it's done. Let's say, oh my God, city council just got on board. They're going to pay $1 billion to check in with cops' mental health once a quarter. Let's say it happens. Boom. We got all the staffing. We have those psychologists. Everything's happened. Fantasy world, right? So cops go in, right? They say that they have a problem. And like, based on what they say there, they might have to change your duty status for just a short while to make sure that you get help. Oh, now mandatory check-ins are a bad idea because what you really want is to be coddled 3 times, 4 times a year. You don't want to actually get help, right? There's a difference between actually getting help and the idea of getting help. Sometimes getting real help, the circumstances are, hey, listen, we need to put you on pause right now. You're very stressed out. You need to chill out. You have anxiety. You have stress. You have depression. You have whatever it is going on. We're going to take your gun temporarily from you because we think that we should change your duty status, and it would be better conducive to changing your duty status and your stress level to get you the help that you need and make sure that you complete these steps of this program to get you the best possible help that you need, right? That's what actual help looks like, okay? It's uncomfortable and you might not want to do that, but the problem is you want to have your cake and eat it too. You want to be able to have a severe mental illness and also not change your duty status and continue to do your job like you do it. Listen, for a long ass time, I used to not understand that, but I do understand that. Like when I was going through my depression and anxiety and I was going to kill myself over this fucking job, right? Looking back on it now, I'm glad that I didn't have my pistols. I'm 100%. I should not have. Okay. And my duty status wasn't changed because of psychological. It was changed for disciplinary. But at the same time, I was glad that it was because I don't know because of what was going through my mind. Like, I'm glad that I didn't have that opportunity where I was carrying a gun every day because my thoughts were not clear. And if your thoughts are not clear and you're expected to carry a gun, and now also from this standpoint, let's say this, you are depressed, you have severe depression, you have anxiety, and the psychologists determine that you probably are better off taking a pause, right? That pause isn't because they don't think that you're fit to be a police officer, right? That pause is because you're overwhelmed, you're stressed out, all this stuff. You going back out there to an extremely stressful work environment is not going to do you any favors to contributing your stress because you're already at a stress level here, and stress compounds on itself. It's cumulative. So you're already at a level where they think that accumulation is super high. By sending you back out there to continue to do your job as you've been doing it, all it takes is one or two critical incidents or whatever it is, cultural incidents within the police department to boost you up even higher. That's a risk that they don't want to take. So that's another reason why they want to change your duty status to try and help you. Okay. And I know it's looked at as like, oh, I can't believe they took my guns, all this stuff. But like, you have to think outside of the box reality and without emotion sometimes is that sometimes you really need to take a pause. Sometimes you need a break. Sometimes, even your star player sometimes, right, needs to sit on the bench and just chill for a minute. Think about what's going on. Have a reality check about what's going on. But the problem is when we talk about mandatory mental health check-ins, that's what real mandatory mental health check-ins would actually look like. People would be getting their duty statuses changed on a more frequent basis, and cops would look at it like they're trying to screw me over, not like they're trying to help me. Because listen, and I will tell you straight out, all right, there's certain arms of every single agency that are going to look to protect the job, obviously, but not only that, but like think about it, like if they're not only protecting the job, they're protecting you too. And I know it's hard for us to think about that because all they care about is the job. All they care about is the department. They don't care about me. Listen, they are, for a lot of them are first and foremost protecting the job, but they're not going to fire you. They're just going to make sure that you get the help that you need and aren't some type of extreme liability to the department. Because what would cause you to be a liability to the department, right? Now you have to think about it from this way. The only things that would cause you to be a liability to the department is if you were psychologically, let's say, unfit to be a police officer anymore, and you were you were likely, okay, to commit an act of physical violence to yourself or somebody else, right? Based on what your mental status was. Because if you're not doing that, if you're going through the program and you don't exhibit signs of aggression or anger or psychological break or anything else throughout this time, right? And you don't exhibit those signs, they're going to put you back out there. All right. It's just that they need to make sure that you're okay. You're not a liability, obviously, to them. And most importantly, that you're not a liability to yourself. All right. We always look at it as they're going to change my duty status because they don't care about me. And maybe they don't. Let's say they don't care about you, but they're going to make sure that you get better. All right. Whatever those steps look like. All right. Maybe they don't care about you, but they're going to make sure that you get better. Right. Because they don't want somebody who may be a danger to themselves or other people out on the street. Right. And that's maybe their primary motivation. But maybe you shouldn't be on the street because you're a danger to yourself or somebody else. And are you doing good for yourself if you're a danger to you or somebody else or your kids or what? No, you're a danger, right? You should be taken care of. You should be. And we don't like to look at that because we don't like to think as cops that we are normal people, that we're regular people only when it suits us. We're also regular people when it comes to mental health too. And we would be the first people to be like, oh, this guy, some guy, we go to a job or whatever, and this person is, talking about killing themselves and talking about being suicidal, and we'll go in and we'll take their guns from them so they don't kill themselves. But then for some reason, we think that we're better. We're better than them. We know better than them. We know more than them. We shouldn't have our guns taken from us because we're fine. We'll be able to handle it. We're cool. That's not the truth. All right. The truth of the matter is, like, we are very much the same. And that's why I always get into like, oh, they always want mandatory mental health checks. Well, that's what mandatory mental health checks would look like. You say you want them, but then would also complain about what the outcome and the results were, even if they were trying to help you. It would just be another thing for you to bitch about and claim to be a victim about, that the job was out to get you through these mandatory mental health checks. Physical health checks, same thing. Cops are scared to get their physical health checked in these vans or whatever because they're scared that, oh, the job might find that I'm going to have a heart attack and they're going to, they're going to sideline me because I'm going to have a heart attack and I have a condition and they might change my duty status. Dude, good. I think people fail to see the good part in that, right? Oh my God, the job found out that I was about to fucking die of a heart attack, so they changed my duty status, right? Until I get physically better, and then they are going to change my duty status back pending that I get better physically, right? There's nothing wrong with that. I'm sorry. They found out, listen to this. They found out that you were probably going to have you die of a heart attack, right? Your fucking 3 arteries were clogged and like all this stuff. And you have to get better, monitor your blood pressure for a certain amount of time before they determine that you should go back out there and possibly fucking die of a heart attack on the job. And you're like, oh my God, the job is screwing me over. I can't believe they did this to me. I can't believe they changed my duty status because I was going to die if I went out there again. But we care way too much about this patch on our shoulder and this shield on our chest that we fail to see that the value of human life is way more important than the value of wearing a uniform or being a police officer. Like, we cannot, for some reason, think about our life as being more important than what we do for work or what we're doing right now at work. Like, it's absolutely bizarre. So that's my standpoint on that. What else? What other responses did I get? I don't know. I got a bunch of other responses about certain things, about everybody caring about mental health, and that specifically the quote unquote job doesn't care. But the truth of the matter is, most of us only care when it affects us. We don't care about the actions that we might have to take to help people or be better to other people, why we treat each other like shit, why we screenshot each other's texts and post them on the internet, post body camera videos, make fun of I don't know, every sports team that exists, or like whether somebody does something positive for community and gives out boots. We got to talk shit about this guy because he got promoted, and it's insane. All right, people don't realize that we are not exempt from statistics, and the statistic is that like people who are cyberbullied are 4 times more likely to die by suicide. 4 times. And we cyberbully the shit out of each other. And like, people would argue that, oh, well, probably not the same. It's actually probably worse for first responders because of what I said before. We get so wrapped up in this identity and this blue brotherhood nonsense that if somebody does talk shit about us on the internet or we do fuck up, we already feel isolated. And we feel like these people are our brothers and our sisters, and we feel like we can count on them. And we have this reputation built in our head that these people are our quote unquote blue family, right? That when they do talk shit about us, and when they do come out against us, and when they do continuously, make us feel bad, we have nowhere to turn because our brothers and our sisters just turned our back on us. They're the ones who are supposed to understand. They're the ones supposed to support me. Well, everybody else is against me. These people are supposed to support me, and here they are talking worse shit than anybody, and they don't have my back. Where do I go now? I'm so alone. I feel so isolated. I have nobody that I could turn to. What do you think the next thing is going to happen? Right? You feel isolated. You feel alone. You feel like everything's out of control. Nobody understands you. You're a burden on everybody. Everybody. What do you think the next step is, guys? I know what the next step is. All right. It's not something that you want to see or want to talk about, but it's obviously suicide, right? And unfortunately, we are a contributing factor to in each other's suicides. Whether it be ignoring our behavior, right? Not calling people out on their behavior that eventually contribute to them taking their life, or us legitimately pressuring people or bullying them into some of the feelings and emotions that they have, right? We are contributing factors. Now, I'm not saying that, I think we're the biggest contributing factor to our own mental health, 100%. So we need to get better. And that's why I'm here. That's why I do what I do. I try to help people understand how it is that they are affecting their own mental health, and how what we perceive as being the contributing factors really usually are not the contributing factors, and how most of the things that we have control of in our own life that we can change are the things that we are continuously fucking up and not doing and not taking care of, which get worse and snowball into things. And then we make bad decisions that we can't come back from. Or we could come back from them, but they're very much more difficult to come back from. But we look at it as like, I can't come back from this, or coming back from this is too hard, too overwhelming, and too uncomfortable and too difficult. I might as well just not be here anymore. It doesn't start out as, some grand thing that happens. It starts out as like a small thing. Small behaviors become bigger behaviors, become this giant snowball, and eventually it ends in either a complete mental health crisis of somebody actually pulling the trigger, but people fail to realize that a majority of suicides would never be labeled suicides because most people kill themselves very, very slowly. Alcohol, depression, eating too much, living a miserable existence, engaging in toxic negative behavior, and eventually just dying. But they died a long time ago because the decisions that they made were just decisions that um, you know contributed to their demise. Alcohol, all these other things, drugs, even post retirement, a lot of cops get involved in drugs, and it's unfortunate. But that's all I got for this week. I hope it was a good discussion. I felt like I got a lot out there, especially when it comes to mental health. The most important thing, guys, is you have to take care of yourself. You have to take care of yourself. You have to take care of the people around you, right? Be a good person. Ask people how they're doing. Check in with them and legitimately care. Get uncomfortable, have those uncomfortable conversations with people. If you have a friend out there that's you see their behavior is out of control, they're angry all the time, they're not good, try to encourage them, okay? Even if it's going to be uncomfortable, try to encourage them. Hey, listen, maybe you should take care of yourself. Maybe you should not be angry all the time. Maybe you should maybe drink a little less. Maybe you shouldn't make the decision to cheat on your spouse. Maybe it's not cool to sleep with your driver. Maybe you should, realize that you have a family with 2 kids and you're making all these decisions. Those conversations are uncomfortable as shit because we're like, whatever, it's none of my business. But here's the deal. It is your business. It 100% is your business, and you should try and be making them better, and you should try to be elevating yourself, not to be part of this same culture, right? We only get better through making each other better, making ourselves better, and doing the hard work. It's not easy to do. Um, Anybody who does this work can tell you that. So, guys, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for always rocking with me. I appreciate you guys. I love you. I'll actually be in Aruba next week. So there'll be no podcast next week, but we'll come back rocking and rolling when I get back. I'm looking forward to it. In the meantime, please check out all my other previous podcasts. There's a bunch of them on here. I greatly appreciate it. Guys, love you. Peace. See you later.